They told her to serve coffee because, apparently, she looked like someone who belonged in the kitchen, not the briefing room. No insignia, no name tape, just a quiet woman in standard BDUs carrying a notepad. But when she reached across the conference table to refill the general's cup, her sleeve pulled back just enough to reveal a ring that made every officer in the room go silent. Not just any jewelry, this was proof she had survived the deadliest training program in the military. The same general who had ignored her until that moment suddenly couldn't take his eyes off her hand. What he saw meant she'd completed missions that most colonels had only read about in classified reports. Before we dive into what happened in that Norfolk briefing room, hit that like button and tell us in the comments what country you're watching from, because this general was about to learn a lesson he'd never forget. The morning briefing at Joint Expeditionary Base Norfolk was supposed to be routine another quarterly assessment. Another room full of senior officers discussing overseas operations while someone else handled logistics. Someone expendable. Someone like Staff Sergeant Sienna Anderson. She walked into conference room 7A that Tuesday morning looking unremarkable. Woodland camouflage uniform. Hair pulled into a regulation bun. No unit patches. No ribbons, nothing that would catch anyone's attention. A leather portfolio under one arm. A thermos of coffee in the other. Moving with quiet efficiency that screamed invisible. The room buzzed with conversation. 3 colonels clustered around satellite images on the mahogany table. 2 lieutenant colonels reviewed flight manifests. At the far end, General Patricia Hawkins sat studying her notes with the intensity that had earned her 2 stars. Nobody noticed Sienna. Why would they? She moved along the perimeter, setting up the coffee station filters in place. Cream and sugar packets lined up neatly, the mundane work that kept high-level meetings running while the important people focused on important things. "Excuse me," called Colonel David Brooks without even looking up. "Make sure we have enough copies of the operational summary, and maybe some Danish pastries." Sienna nodded once. "Yes, sir," Colonel Lisa Freeman added. "And General Harrison black coffee." "No sugar." "Understood, Mom." They spoke to her like furniture, functional, necessary, but not quite human. What none of them knew, what none could guess from her quiet demeanor and unremarkable uniform, was that Sienna had spent the last 18 months doing things that would give most of them nightmares. But for now, she was invisible, exactly the way she preferred it. Being underestimated had long been her most powerful weapon. People talked freely when they thought you didn't matter. They let their guard down. Sienna had turned this into an art form. On paper, her background was intentionally unremarkable, standard enlisted progression, clean service record, competent but not exceptional reviews. Nothing that would raise scrutiny or questions. But this invisibility gave her access. She observed decision-making, command relationships, and operational planning from the shadows. Unnoticed. Today was different. Filling in for Master Sergeant Williams, she was handling a briefing far above her usual assignment: joint operations planning, classified mission reviews, discussions that never made it into official reports. She arrived early, checked secure communications, arranged seating by rank and clearance, and ensured classified materials were properly accounted for. By the time the first officers arrived, everything was in perfect order, and Sienna had positioned herself to remain useful but unseen. General Marcus Harrison arrived precisely on schedule, 15 minutes early. You could hear him before you saw him, not loud, but commanding. Every ribbon and medal gleamed. His walk exuding quiet authority earned from tours in Afghanistan, Iraq, and countless classified operations. Conversation halted mid-sentence as he entered, and officers straightened instinctively. Harrison surveyed the room with practiced precision, taking inventory of personnel and materials. His gaze swept over Sienna, who remained near the coffee station, perfectly part of the background. "Gentlemen, ladies," Harrison said, his voice calm but carrying Let's begin. Colonel Brooks launched into the operational overview, using a laser pointer to highlight positions on satellite images. Sienna listened professionally. Her role to manage logistics, keep coffee fresh, monitor classified documents, ensure the meeting flowed smoothly while quietly absorbing more tactical detail than anyone expected. About 20 minutes in, Harrison nodded toward his cup. Sienna moved forward with practiced ease to refill it, thermal carafe in hand. Nothing about the action was unusual except for the slight pull of her sleeve, exposing the Navy SEAL ring on her finger. The room went silent. Harrison's mind raced at knew the numbers, the attrition, the rarity of women who'd earned the right to wear that ring. The room full of colonels and lieutenants had no idea what they were seeing. Staff Sergeant Anderson, Harrison said quietly, slicing through Colonel Brooks' presentation. That's an interesting ring you're wearing. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Sienna froze. It was a gift. Sir, she said carefully. Harrison leaned in, scrutinizing her posture, the subtle readiness in her stance. This was no ordinary staff sergeant. The ring was earned. Sir, she admitted. Silence engulfed the room. Colonel Brooks dropped his pen. Colonel Freeman stopped taking notes. Everyone stared, processing that the coffee-serving Sienna Anderson was, in fact, a Navy SEAL. Harrison's questions confirmed her operational history. Hell Week completed, multiple deployments, classified missions in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria, recovery assignment, temporary administrative duty while awaiting reassignment. All true but stripped of details that remain classified. He understood she'd been wounded in Syria, lost teammates, and been serving coffee while recovering from trauma, both physical and psychological. Sienna mit Herrschensgeisch. I want to get back to doing the job I'm good at, she said. The skills are still there. I just need the right opportunity. Harrison nodded, impressed by her honesty and readiness. Within weeks, Sienna transitioned from administrative support to operational planning. She was finally leading missions, coordinating teams, making decisions that mattered. Her expertise no longer hidden behind the guise of coffee runs and paperwork. Colonels Brooks and Freeman quietly requested transfers, the unspoken acknowledgement of their previous underestimation. The lesson spread, never judged by uniform, insignia, or assumed role. Months later, Sienna was at the head of the table, leading a joint task force with representatives from multiple military branches and intelligence agencies. Her reputation as a competent, decisive operator was solidified, and the Navy SEAL ring on her finger, no longer a subtle symbol, it was a reminder that being underestimated can be a strength, and that true respect is earned by performance, not perception. Sometimes late at night, reviewing mission plans, she would think back to that morning in conference room 7A, pouring coffee, invisible to all, until a single gesture changed everything. It hadn't been an end, it had been the beginning of reclaiming her place where she truly belonged. Talent had a way of revealing itself, and Sienna Anderson had finally stepped fully into the role she was meant to play.